Welcome to episode 101 of the Family Answer Man podcast. Today we are dealing with and talking about dads that are dealing with depression from a biblical worldview on the Family Answer Man. I'm David Orgis, and I'm here with Dr. Mark Crosby. He is a pastor, educator, marriage and family therapist, and our resident expert here on the Family Answer Man. As a reminder, the Family Answer Man is not a therapy session. We're not able to give specific advice to unique circumstances, but we do believe that mental and spiritual health are very important. So we encourage you to seek professional counsel for your unique, specific circumstances. Before we jump in today, I want to ask you if you'll go ahead and hit the notification bell, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You will never miss an episode of the Family Answer Man. And if you are listening via podcast, if you will give us a rating and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, that helps us out a lot. And you can always help the Family Answer Man community grow by sharing this show with your friends, your family, so they can join you on this journey of building stronger, healthier, happier families. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today.
Yes, good to see you.
Yeah, it's going to be a good topic today, I think. One that maybe over the years hasn't been explored a lot.
Nope, I don't think so.
You know, this is... I think the world has become more open to talking about mental health, especially for men.
Right.
But there's still a large population of men, and especially older men, that really are not open to the discussion. Have you found that a lot as a pastor and as a therapist? Have you found that to be the case, that especially the older generation hasn't still fully embraced mental health?
Right. I mean, as a therapist, yes, definitely so. In the sense that depression is something that for many, especially in my parents' generation, and maybe even a few in my generation, they saw as something as simply a weakness.
Yeah.
Get over yourself, snap out of it.
Toughen up.
Yeah. It's not so bad. Look on the bright side. That sort of thing. Mm. And what many have discovered over the years is that depression is a real serious mental illness. It's a real serious concern, just like high blood pressure. Yeah. Just like arthritis or any other debilitating, problem or disease. And so it's not something you just snap out of. It's not something you just get over. It's not something you just, look on the brighter side. All these little cliches that many have thrown at people over the years have not been helpful, and in some cases have been very detrimental. So once we understand, and as we have grown in our understanding of depression, people have begun to realize that it's something that needs to be treated, because it can lead to some very serious and debilitating problems, suicide being the ultimate one, of course, in some cases even homicide. We've read of many cases and situations where a person, killed their family, then themselves, whatever, and come to find out they were going through an extreme depressive episode, major depressive episode, and because of circumstances or situations or conflicts, etc. And so again, depression is something that you cannot take lightly. It is something that we will all perhaps experience at some point in our lifetime. And I think this is where we're going today with this situation with depression and dads. Because again, a lot of men want to be, the tough guy, I got it all together, only, people, wimpy men, get depressed or get sad or whatever, big men don't cry, that kind of thing. And so what's happening is that men are realizing, what, I am not made out of steel. I'm not, bulletproof. I do get depressed like everyone else. And so, but how do you deal with that now? Because there's a lot of men who don't want to take medication, a lot of men who don't want to see a therapist, a lot of men who try to go on their own and try to fix it themselves. But as I've heard before, that's like taking out your own appendix. It doesn't go well. Okay? It doesn't go well. So you need help. You need support. You need, in some cases, medication, or if not, alternatives to that are hopefully helpful and able to treat your symptoms. So again, depression among men, especially dads, is something we need to be mindful of and something we need to be concerned about, because believe it or not, moms and wives and children, your dad gets depressed, your husband gets depressed. And sometimes they try to mask it. Sometimes they try to, work through it. They grit their teeth and try to move on. But sometimes it becomes so debilitating and so difficult that they just can't.
Yeah.
And sometimes they will suffer alone for many, many weeks, months, or even years.
And I think that's the good news right off the bat, is that because it is an illness, it's something that can be treated.
Exactly.
And something that can be overcome.
Yes.
So there's a lot of hope there for
Yes.
that. That leads us to our question for the day.
Okay.
And if you want to get your questions answered, we would love to do that. You can email us, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. That's familyanswerman@liveoak.church. We love getting those questions. We love being able to answer those for you on air. The question for today says that my dad struggles with depression, which is new for us, as he was always the person who never got depressed and was actually critical of those who were depressed. Now he has no joy. He's indecisive, struggles with motivation, and just wants to sit in his chair and watch TV. He doesn't want to take any meds. So are there any alternatives to treating depression other than medication?
Yeah.
And what is the cause of all of this?
So depression, again, as we said on this show before, but again, it deserves to be repeated. It hits us in a variety of ways. In other words, for example, as we said earlier, sometimes depression is genetic due to the chemical imbalances that may be in our brain. Very similar to high blood pressure. Sometimes many will argue that sometimes high blood pressure can be genetic, arthritis, other conditions. So again, depression can be something that you inherited from your parents. You're easily depressed due to the chemical imbalance of the brain. For others, it's circumstances. There's a loss of a job or a loss of a loved one or something along those lines, where there's circumstances that's created this depression. Sometimes changes in life, even good changes. I mean, right now it's summertime and there's a lot of changes going on. Graduations have occurred. Even vacations can be, a major change for some people. That family reunion and going to see family members, but knowing there are some who won't be there. So changes, can be depressing, or maybe a job change or a move or things along those lines. So changes can create and cause depression. Another one, this is the most classic one, is anger. Anger turned inward. Anger turned toward yourself. What was I thinking? Why did I do that? Why did I make that decision? Why did I say what I said? Why did I go to that situation? Or why did I not do things differently or better? And the list goes on. That anger turned inward. And sometimes anger that is out of the ordinary for you. In other words, when someone that hardly ever gets angry, hardly ever says anything unkind, all of a sudden starts berating someone just out of the blue for whatever reason, that's a sign of depression. Feelings of hopelessness can be a reason for depression, if you will. Sadness that goes beyond 2 weeks is something we're looking at. It's one thing to be sad if your ball team lost or something like that,
right.
Or, your daughter didn't get that scholarship, or your son, lost the, game or whatever. Those are all sad moments. But when it goes beyond 2 weeks, now that evolves from sadness into a depression. And number 7, if you're keeping count, is those feelings of hopelessness. And these are all things that most of us are aware of. But if any one of those things lasts for more than 2 weeks, then depression is often the result. Some symptoms that, again, we need to be reminded of depression are simply these. And by the way, 5 or more are required for a diagnosis. But if you feel sad, empty as an adult for more than 2 weeks, then be mindful that is a symptom of depression. But for children, it's different. Children, if they are irritable and if they're acting out, all day, every day for 2 weeks or more, that again is symptomatic of depression. Number 2, a loss of interest. Again, no pleasures in anything. If you used to love playing golf, or if you used to love going fishing, or if you used to love, playing, basketball with your kids out in the driveway, and now all of a sudden you have no interest in that. You don't want that. That's no pleasure in that, and that's a symptom of depression. Weight loss or weight gain. In other words, you start overeating or undereating, where you're gaining weight or losing weight significantly. We're talking 3-4 pounds per week.
Right.
If you're not able to sleep, if you just have this chronic insomnia, you just cannot sleep. And by the way, sleep is so very important to your mental health. It gives your brain a chance to, in many cases, rewire itself, if you will. It rests. It gets the balance that it needs after being stimulated all day.
Yeah, it's not just a physical refresher. It is also mental.
It is mental. It is physical. It is psychological. It is emotional. I mean, all those things. So sleep is so powerful and so important. Getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep on average many would say is the minimum.
Right.
And so if you're a 4 or 5 hour a night person, you may want to up that.
Yes.
But anyway, so when you're not able to sleep, that is a symptom of depression. Feeling restless, you just can't relax. Fatigue, loss of energy. Feelings of worthlessness or feeling just guilty about everything. Everything is your fault. Everything is, due to your decisions or whatever it may be. You can't think clearly. You're just indecisive, and that's one we'll go back to. But being indecisive, used to you could make decisions, you could do what you needed to do, you knew where you were going, but now you just can't. Suicidal ideation, where you're thinking about death and ending your life, and how would that look, and how would I do that? And then last of all, I would argue, in adding this one, abusing substances. When you are constantly abusing various substances, alcohol, prescription drugs, even illegal drugs. But these are all symptoms. Now, if you have 5 of those 10, chances are you could be considered diagnosed as depressed. So beware then. Beware of the 3 major symptoms. Again, just to kind of reiterate, beware of being hopeless and helpless. When a person is feeling hopeless and helpless, that is very concerning, because if that is not treated, if that's not dealt with, that could evolve into something even more disastrous.
Yeah, and they can get out of hand pretty quick.
That's when you start feeling suicidal. That's when you start feeling homicidal even. That's when you start feeling like there's just no point in going on. That's when you start drinking more or whatever it may be. Again, being indecisive, where you just no longer can make a decision. Something as simple as, what store do I go to? What brand of milk do I buy, or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
Do I use a credit card or do I use cash?
Well, they seem silly, but those are real examples of what people experience.
They really are. And when you're unable to make a decision like that, it becomes very frustrating to you and to those around you.
Yeah.
And most people who aren't aware of your situation become very frustrated with you, and they begin to push you a little bit, and that makes things even worse.
Right.
Like, why can't you make up your mind? Why can't you just show up? Why can't you just say yes? Why can't you just, let us know you're going to come over? Why can't you just, whatever? And now you're struggling because it's not that you don't want to make a decision.
Right.
You feel like you can't make a decision.
Yeah.
And then, of course, low motivation. I have no motivation to get out of bed. It's not just being lazy. It's just I'm laying there and the TV's on, but I have no idea what I'm watching. It's just on for noise, and you're just staring at the ceiling, and the thoughts are just going crazy in your mind, if you will, and you just cannot get the thoughts from slowing down or stopping, and all these crazy thoughts just keep running into each other, one after the other, and it's a very difficult and sometimes dangerous place to be. So, when a person can't get out of bed due to no interest in life, when they feel like they're not able to do anything, if they feel like they'll never be happy again, if they're feeling vulnerable or feeling alone, the big question is, how do you treat that?
Right. What can you do about it?
And this is the question this person is asking. Hey, my dad's depressed. He doesn't want to take medication. And there's a lot of folks in our listening audience, I would argue, that when it comes to taking psychotropic medications for depression, may push back.
Right.
And that's understandable, because medication, though, is very important, and please talk to your physician about this. They do carry some pretty severe side effects. And I think, any good doctor will tell you that.
Right.
So here's some ways to treat depression without medication. Number one, as we said before, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy. What that does is that deals with the negative thoughts. That helps you to maybe rethink your thoughts, and that's very biblical for those who are listening in our listening audience. The Bible talks about as we think, so we behave.
Right.
And so if we change the way we think, if we restructure the way we think, then that may restructure the way we behave. And so helping or getting the help in how to restructure your thoughts is so very important. Reality therapy also is a way of looking at what needs are not being met in your life. For a lot of people, if they go days, weeks, months, or years without having some of the basic needs met in their life, then they start becoming depressed. Dr. William Glasser gives a wonderful list, and I'll make it real quick. But the first one, and the one that most of us, I think, in this listening audience can identify with and has no problem meeting, I hope, is that the general basics of life: shelter, food, clothing, roof over your head, food on the table. And so if that first needs being met, but again, there are some maybe in our listening audience who don't have those needs being met. Yeah. And if you go days, weeks, or months, that becomes very depressing. Number two, though, has to do with love and relationships. If you're no longer feeling loved, if you're not being loved the way you want to be loved, if your love language, if you will, is not being spoken, and you feel that the person that you're married to or the person who's parenting you or the people in your life are not loving you the way you want to be loved, that can be very depressing. And a good therapist will help you to unpack that. Wanting power and control in your life. I mean, all of us want to have some sense of power and control over our life, and we don't want others to have power and control over our lives.
Right. And you can hear that on the surface and think, oh, well, you're just trying to get all kind of power and control. And this is just basic. You need to be in control of your life.
Your choices are your choices.
Right, yeah.
And when everybody's making your choices for you and everybody's trying to control you. And and again, we see this, unfortunately, in the church. And again, for the pastors who are listening out there are people in your congregation, and you know what I'm saying.
They may or may not.
Yeah, they want to control you, They want to tell you, how to dress. They want to tell you what kind of car you can drive. They want to tell you what neighborhood you can live in. They will remind you as to, how much money you can make or whatever it may be. And so there's that sense of power and control. And when you feel like you no longer have power and control over your life, that can be very depressing.
Right.
Another one is freedom. Wanting to have some sense of freedom. The freedom to say no. The freedom to, go shopping, the freedom to take a vacation, the freedom to do things that you want to do without everyone, basically back to the power and control, telling you what you can and cannot do. And then the fifth one is fun. We all want to have fun,
right?
We all, and I think part of the problem with many people is they have forgotten how to have fun.
Yes.
So anyway, part of a therapeutic program would be to help a person to figure out which one of these needs are not being met and how you can make them in a healthy way. Number two, in treating your depression without medication is exercise. And that's something that we all know, but it's something we don't really practice.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't have to prepare for the Olympics, okay? you don't have to prepare, as if you're going to be a professional athlete, but get out and walk.
You laugh about that, but that's so true, and especially you talk about men, especially if somebody was a competitive athlete in their youth, it can be really difficult to just say, hey, I'm just going to go for a walk. Yeah. I'm just going to move and not, hey, I've got to go circuit train at the gym for, at least 45 minutes a day.
Yeah. And if you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. But if you're, in your 50s or 60s or older, and you're struggling with depression and you don't want to go to the gym and you don't want to work out with a 25-year-old guy, who's all, buffed jacked or whatever. Then get out and walk. Walk 15 minutes in one direction and 15 minutes back the other direction. Here's something that everybody's talking about, and I think our audience may pick up on this, is pickleball. Everybody's talking about pickleball. Yes, and what everybody's saying is how much fun it is. And what everybody's saying is that no matter how old you are or how young you are, you can have a great time doing it. And it's fun, it's competitive, it's interesting, it's exciting, and you get a little exercise out of it. Yeah. So try that. Go to the local YMCA or wherever. Go to, in this area, to a BREC center if they have that. Even some churches are starting to form, teams or what have you. But do that. Go biking. Personal training. Put in that CD that you bought, 10 years ago that you haven't looked at, and start, doing the push-ups and start doing the sit-ups or whatever. But the thing is, just start moving. 25, 35 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week, and you'll be amazed as to what that does to your treatment of your depression. Thirdly, if you're keeping count, diet. There's a saying that we all heard all of our lives, especially my generation, as a boomer, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Okay, well, there's something to be said for that. but apples or bananas, honey instead of sugar, in your smoothie. Also, there's some great natural dietary supplements that are out there that are on the market. But that's so important, especially in today's world and with all the processed foods that we have today. And we have no idea. We're just learning just how crucial diet is to our mental health. Yeah. Also, simplify your life, number 4. I meet so many people, and for the pastors who are listening out there, it's okay to simplify your life. It's okay to start narrowing down and streamlining what's really important. You cannot say yes to everybody. You cannot go to every birthday. You cannot go to every, funeral of everybody in your community. As wonderful as that may be and as meaningful as that may be, you just can't.
Right. Yeah. I heard a great quote one time says a yes to one thing is a no to everything else.
Exactly. And so it's so important that you begin to simplify your life, and so important to be able to give yourself permission to say, you know what, I'm just not going to go there. I'm just not going to make that. I have other things I need to take care of. And that other thing may be just your own rest and your own family time and your own relaxation.
Right. And that's just acknowledging your own limits as a human being, and knowing that this is what I can do, what I can't do, and living in the design that God has made for us.
And I can say that. Again, I've been doing this, for 37 years now. I totally get it. There's not a story out there that you can tell
that you can't tell.
That I couldn't tell and square it, So, but anyway, don't tell everyone yes. Number 5, and we talked about this already, sleep. If you can't sleep, try to find maybe some natural supplements or some natural remedies to getting some sleep, but definitely get some sleep. Positive support group. In other words, find some people that that you trust, that you love, that love you, and that can basically speak into your life, that can encourage you, that can be there for you, that will, basically push you a little bit. But have that positive support group. And, if you're not in one, find one. We call them accountability groups, call them small groups, but have that positive support group that can speak into your life and that can encourage you. Number 7, here's one that we don't think about a lot, but we've said it before on this program: serve someone else. In other words, if you're depressed and you're trying to get out of your depression and you're walking a little bit more now and maybe getting some therapy, and maybe you're, got a good group of people that's working with you, then what I would encourage you to do is find a person or a group of people or someone that you can serve.
Yeah.
Whether that's a shelter or whether that's a, mission team or whether that's a neighbor next door who, maybe they can't cut their grass, or maybe their grass needs cutting, or maybe they need someone to wash their car, or whatever it may be. Or just maybe, doing something very positive for someone that's service oriented that would make their day. As we said before, bring, some cookies to the people at the nursing home who are serving the patients.
Right.
Let them know how much you appreciate their efforts, but anything you can do to make someone's day. And then, of course, definitely we want to do number 8, pray, read scripture, personal study. Prayer is so important. Reading the scripture is so important. Everybody who's listening to me knows that already. But sometimes we just don't take the time to really dive deep in our prayer time, or dive deep into our personal study, or dive deep into our reading of scripture. And so again, those things are so important. Number 9, worship. Worship is essential to our mental health. I know Sunday morning rolls around and you don't feel like going to church. I know it's raining outside. I know it's, windy outside. I know it's cold, and probably there's gnats, out in the yard. I know, that your car's probably only got a half a tank of gas or whatever it may be. We can think of 1,000,001 excuses, but make yourself go to worship.
Yeah.
You'll be glad you did, and it will do wonders for your spiritual health, but also for your depression. And number 10, very similar to number 7, but send a positive note to someone. Send that text, send that email, send that postcard if you're from the old school, send that letter, from the old school, but send a positive note, just something that says, hey, I appreciate you, thinking of you today, I love you, hope you're doing well. Can't wait to see you, or whatever it may be. But you'll be amazed as to what that does for you as well as for the person that you're sending that to. But it'll boost who you are emotionally and mentally.
So a lot of things there that we can do. What's the result of if somebody really buckles down, they say, hey, I'm going to try these things. What can they expect to see?
Good question. So basically what you're asking is what happens after treatment?
Yeah.
Well, 40% of the people who are treated and who use some of these things to treat their depression have reported getting better in 3 months.
Wow, that's a really high rate.
Yeah. And so those who apply what we just said have reported, 40% have reported getting better in 3 months. 80% have reported getting better in 12 months by applying this.
I mean, that's crazy. You think about, hey, if I could guarantee or give you 80% chance that in 1 year your life would be completely transformed and you would be out of this, almost anybody would take that pill.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so, and the thing is, you've done it all naturally.
Right.
You've done it in ways that have benefited not only you but other people as you're blessing other people, and you're growing in other ways, spiritually, relationally, etc.
And life changes that are sustainable over time.
Right. Now, 20% of the people may be chronic, which means this. What that generally means is there's an anxiety that is accompanying the depression that is preventing treatment. Or there's a personality disorder that is preventing the treatment. For example, the narcissist says, I don't need to do this. I know better than the therapist. I'm smarter than everybody else.
Right.
And so that's something to note. Also know that there are some who will have recurring episodes. But the longer you go without the depression recurring, the less likely it's going to recur.
Okay.
So, but again, there may be times where you may have some recurring episodes because, again, for some people, this is a genetic, problem. And sometimes it becomes a pattern. And this is the point, staying involved with your therapist every 2 to 3 months. Even though you may be feeling okay and things are going pretty well, go see your therapist just for a checkup.
Just check in. Yeah.
Exactly. Because remission for depression is when you go more than 2 months without any significant symptoms. Doesn't mean you're symptom free, but they're not significant. So that's very important to note. So depression, again, like blood pressure, is something you want to monitor. And so it's very important that maybe you are open to your spouse or to your family member or to a friend about your depression, meaning, hey, if you start seeing me not wanting to take my walk, if you start seeing me not wanting to go play pickleball, if you start seeing me not wanting to go to church, if you say, hey, well, let's pray about that, and I'm going, I don't really want to feel like praying.
Right.
Be free and open to say to me, that's a problem. We need to talk. We need to figure out what's going on. I think you may be going back into a depressive state.
Right. And that goes back to what you said earlier, surrounding yourself with people that are going to be a positive influence on you.
Exactly. So be open with your family, your friends, be open with your pastor, your therapist. Share your concerns also with your healthcare professional. Let your doctor know that you've had these symptoms. Don't just go and tell your doctor, yeah, I'm fine. You give me my prescription, for my blood pressure meds and let me move on. But let him know or let her know what's going on. Also be mindful of preventative exercises and lifestyle maintenance. Again, go on that vacation. Take that holiday. Get on that Mediterranean diet. Figure out what that looks like. Get that sleep that you need. Advance in your exercise routine. If you're playing pickleball, start playing competitively. Start going to pickleball tournaments. Start walking. If you're walking 30 minutes one way and 30 minutes the next, move it up to 45 minutes. But try to advance in your exercise routine. And always, when you're depressed, when you're down, when you're anxious, call upon the name of the Lord. The Bible talks about, we're to be anxious for nothing. The Bible says that we're to bring all of our cares before Him because He cares for us. Bring our anxieties to Him. Bring our depression to Him because He cares for us. So call upon His name. Let Him do a great work in your life. And in doing those things, you'll be able to manage and treat and overcome your depression.
There you have it from the Family Answer Man. That applies to everyone, but especially for dads. Great advice to take today. We hope that this episode of the Family Answer Man, as always, will inspire you to make changes that'll lead to a stronger, healthier, happier family.